Sunny Hostin lost it when her co-host hinted that DEI, or diversity, equity, and inclusion, may not be as effective as it first seems. Because of the severity of her outburst, she ended up defending the company's hiring practices, which some people believe to be discriminatory. Let's examine her furious reaction as she responds to Pete Buttigieg's comments about DEI potentially backfiring and attracting more Trump supporters.
What do we mean when we talk about diversity? Is it caring for people's different experiences and making sure no one's mistreated because of them, which I will always fight for? Or is it making people sit through a training that looks like something out of Portlandia, which I have also experienced, and it is how Trump Republicans are made. If that comes to your workplace with the best of intentions, but doesn't actually get at what actually matters here, what's actually at stake.
So do you agree with him that DEI initiatives drove voters to Trump? And what else can be done to make sure everyone is represented on an even playing field?
You know what I think?
What do you think?
I like Pete, of course, but I think he got that so wrong, and I think it was so tone deaf, considering
Which
what's
part?
going on. All of it. I thought all of it was tone.
This is nothing new for Sunny. She reacts in the same manner whenever someone in her political network challenges the party narrative. Remember when John Fetterman, Stephen A. Smith, Ruben Gallego, and Eric Adams were on the show? Sunny always assumed they would agree with her, but she went into a tailspin when they didn't. And this time, it's the same. The high point of the exchange? Would you like to know my opinion? To be honest, Sunny said. What do you think, Sunny? Joy Behar asked. At that moment, there was a tremendous buildup as if someone was about to impart wisdom. But in Sunny's case, it was more like waiting for the most confusing remark you've ever heard.
So in my view, when you look at the stats, it is really clear from McKinsey, actually, a consulting firm that Pete used to work for, that firm found that companies with more diversity financially and socially outperform those that are less diverse. So the business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion, it makes sense. And I think we can all agree that we want our workforce to reflect what our world looks like.
I think he does too, though, don't you?
No, I think he does. But my question, really, I think we need to reframe the discussion. If the problem is these programs, what is the solution? Should we just then depend on the benevolence of Elon Musk and white billionaires to hire women and people of color?
No.
Should we just depend on corporations to, on their own, make the workforce more diverse?
After a heated debate, Sunny defended DEI, arguing it was the only path forward. Instead of focusing on meritocracy or individual growth, she prioritized diversity. Critics saw this as rejecting merit-based achievement, believing true equality comes from nurturing talent, not quotas. Unmoved, Sunny dismissed their stance. Sorry, but we can't agree. You lefties all think alike, while my side values competence over identity. Then, she repeated the same Democratic rhetoric that many believe cost them the election. Looking at the numbers. You mean these Democratic NGO-funded figures? The figures that exist just to bolster one of the many illogical Democratic doctrines? Those numbers supposedly show the economy is doing well. According to experts, the numbers demonstrate that men can transform into women. Based on the data, the COVID vaccine was supposed to shield you from catching the virus and infecting others. Now, experts conveniently assert that workplace diversity benefits businesses. It defies simple, basic, third-grade common sense. The only thing that improves businesses is hiring the best applicants, regardless of race. At this moment, Sarah Haynes cuts Sunny off, effectively telling her that this DEI foolishness is a farce.
The David Axelrod conversation you're talking about was in reference to the DNC winter meeting that happened over a few days, and I just want to show a quick clip of what went down.
You may vote for 2 males, 2 females, 2 of any gender, okay? Nope, you can't do that because we've got to balance. You could vote for 1 of any gender, okay? Or no, non-binary gender, excuse me.
So many people are so frustrated that people are pushing back on DEI that they're not taking a minute to pause that maybe DEI itself needed improvements in its actual application. We're seeing a lot of things. One was New York Times staged fake interviews with diverse candidates. A woman Wells Fargo, the New York Times reported it. Sorry, just to be clear. A woman or a person of color, after the position had been filled, to check off their boxes of minority inclusion. That's not helping anyone. So a lot of the problem is that
implies that the woman wasn't qualified for the job.
There was no job.
After that total humiliation at the DNC, the ladies of The View started to realize that this DEI nonsense is fake. Perhaps the Democrats have gone too far to return to normal. But Sunny is too narrow-minded to see that the DNC's gender-balanced voting practices, which are ostensibly inclusive, are actually discriminatory. What would happen if you told them they could only vote for 2 men, 2 women, and a non-binary person when the leading candidates were all female? What if they're all men? What if they're all non-binary? By enforcing arbitrary quotas in the name of equality, you deny yourself access to the best people. I almost laughed out loud when Sarah had to tell Sunny that these weren't real professions. Have you not listened to my introduction? These were fake interviews. Sunny lives in a fantasy land where fairy dust is everywhere and music plays in her ears. And each time she speaks, it's evident. At this moment, Sunny's ignorance hits a record high, leaving Alyssa and Sarah shocked.
And you've been asking all day, what are the things?
What's the solution?
So she has solutions. She's saying focus on measurable results like pay equity, physical and psychological safety, holding network events, blind hiring. There are a lot of things that you can couch
Blind hiring, that makes sense.
Right.
But isn't that kind of merit-based? Isn't that the whole argument that DEI is against?
Well,
is
she
merit-based?
dug in because she studied, she's a consultant on DEI for companies for 10 plus years. And what she's saying is, regardless
Blind
of the
hiring is the opposite of DEI.
No, that's not true. DEI programs make sure that the most qualified candidates, traditionally excluded from opportunity, are given the chance to compete. So this notion somehow that blind hiring could work, I think that's
Wouldn't
something.
it take the
But it's not
race
about
or identity
merit.
out of
But
it,
it's
and it
not
would be purely based on what you put forward?
But it's not about merit, because the people that are in these DEI programs are already the best of the best.
But she's saying the companies end up doing tokenism rather than help.
I love the cheery stink face at the end when she realized the panel thought she was a fool. No, that's not true. Sunny responded to Alyssa's claim that blind hiring contradicts DEI. Honestly, I wonder how she even got hired or manages daily life. She might be the most obvious DEI hire in history. If someone that clueless can discuss politics on national TV, she's taking the job from millions more qualified. In short, if The View requires zero intelligence, Sunny Hostin is the perfect fit. Plus, her justification only reinforced bias. DEI gives certain people a chance to compete. Naturally, excluding other groups and allowing only a select few to participate is discriminatory. Given how empty-headed she is, the few brain cells she does have are probably wondering whether they are alone in there. I don't know what's more shocking, the show's acknowledgement that DEI is flawed, or the realization that Sunny Hostin is even less intelligent than I first thought. Speaking of absurd DEI hiring on television, Jamili Hill said on CNN that Donald Trump was insulting to black people by hosting a Black History Month event at the White House.
He also mentioned at the same time that there were going to be statues of Kobe Bryant and Muhammad Ali. So it just seems a little hypocritical that you would be doing everything in your power to sort of outlaw the teachings of what, say, a Muhammad Ali stood for. Like, are you going to tell people that he stood against war, that he stood against these very progressive civil rights issues? That doesn't seem to be the part of it. And what I noticed there from that clip is that he had to read letter by letter about what these people, what these great Americans have done in terms of progress for our country, because it's not something he's familiar with and not something that is natural for him. So I consider this to be an insult, a slap in the face. And frankly, all the people that attended this, look, I guess God bless you if you've never been to the White House and maybe you looked at it as some kind of great experience. But everything this president has stood for and done in the last decade or so has been a complete rejection of what Black history is.
There's the classic haughty Democrat arrogance. I mean, I guess if you think going to the White House is a big deal. Regardless of your stance, I would like to think that any American citizen would be pleased and honored to visit the White House. But these race-hustling liberals always see themselves as victims. Nothing is ever good enough. Trump announced his plan to erect 12 statues of notable Black figures in a new White House garden, acknowledged Black history, planned a celebration, and invited 300 important Black leaders to the White House. And that was offensive? Simply reading the histories of these notable Black leaders was racist? Give me a break. Rosa Parks is well known. We are all familiar with Frederick Douglass. But instead of appreciating the recognition, they took offense. These so-called victims seem to be miserable and intolerable. Naturally, if people are constantly gloomy, nobody wants to be around them. The days of racial hustling and identity politics are over. Let's hear the other Black panelist explain why Trump's actions were supposedly so awful, and why racism against Black people in America is still so pervasive.
What happened today was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I don't. I think he's trying to gaslight us. I mean, come on, man. You have got to be kidding.
So he didn't have it. If he didn't have it today, he would be back.
He's trying to gaslight us. First he said he doesn't want anybody in government to celebrate Black History Month. And then he says, okay, I'm going to put on an event about Black History Month and I'm going to be the speaker. There aren't any Black people, really saying anything about what's happening with him. He tried to use DEI as literally a racial slur against us, as if Black people are benefiting from anything in this country and getting anything we're not qualified for and don't have to work twice as hard for. Black people have to live in the real world. When the cops come, we're scared because we might not come out of it alive. We walk into a store, if they let us in, we're followed around. We don't get loans when we have the same credit score as everybody else because we're Black. We have to live in the real world. You can't gaslight us. We know reality when we see it. This is not real. This is a joke. That's what that is.
Let's take a minute to debunk what was said. The most common DEI leftist cliche is that Black people cannot succeed with lower standards because they have to work 5 times as hard as white people. However, last year, the Supreme Court ruled Harvard's DEI admissions illegal after a lawsuit. Let's examine why that ruling aligns with reality. If you're white and in the top 10% of applicants, your odds of getting in are 15.3%. If you're Asian, it's 12.7%. If you're Black, it's 56%. If you're Hispanic, it's 31.3%. For those in the 50th percentile, the odds are 2.6% for whites, 1.9% for Asians, 22.4% for Blacks, and 9.1% for Hispanics. Clearly, this is why the Supreme Court deemed it illegal. Asians must work 3 times as hard as Black applicants for the same results. The same pattern appears in medical school acceptance rates. An Asian with the highest MCAT score gets in at the same rate as a Black applicant with the lowest score. Yet, they still flaunt these statistics. The man then claimed, "Oh, Black people, when we're stopped by the cops, we don't know if we'll be shot. If we're led into a store, they'll follow us around." What store isn't allowing Black people in? He knows that's false. As for banks, loan approvals rely on AI, not some white supremacist deciding based on names. People like Sunny Hostin keep this racist ideology alive and push the Democratic Party to maintain this losing strategy. So what do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments section below. And if you don't want to miss out on the hottest celebrity news, make sure to subscribe to Daily Finder.